Hi, I'm Claire Tompkins, the Clutter Coach, and this is the Organize Your Life podcast. I am passionate about organizing because it makes my clients' lives so much easier, more relaxed, and with more time to spend the way that they want to. In every podcast, I will talk about an organizing, decluttering, or time management concept. I'll tell you why it's important. I'll also include an action step at the end so you can start practicing right away. My specialty is chunking down these big topics so they aren't overwhelming. That's the concept for the podcast, too. I'm now done with the material from my first book, 52 Simple Ways to Get Organized. You can buy my books on my website or on Amazon. You can also view the podcast show notes on my blog. I do this podcast to connect with people, and that means you. Let me know that you're listening. Shoot me an email at claire@cluttercoach.net. I would really love to hear from you. Okay, here we go. This is podcast 94, and it's called Know Your Endpoint. First, let me share with you what we are working on in my coaching group. In case you haven't heard, I now offer a group coaching experience for productivity, time management, prioritizing, procrastination, decluttering, and any other topic that seems to be aligned with that. There's a different theme each month. Next month, we'll be working on time management. Our live session will be on May 2nd. It's always the first Wednesday of the month. Join us. You can find out more and register on my website, www.cluttercoach.net. This month in the coaching group, we are working on procrastination. To that end, I've been collecting all of my best tips for overcoming it, and I share them with the group in our private Facebook group. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the concept of knowing your endpoint. One big reason that people put off doing things is that they think that they'll take forever. I've talked about this idea before in terms of breaking off small chunks of a project so you're not overwhelmed by the whole thing. Even with a small task, though, unless you have a clear idea of how you know when you'll be finished, you'll be resistant to taking it on. In this case, I don't mean how much time it takes, but how you assess your work and how do you pronounce it to be complete. You've probably heard the anecdotal question, how long is a piece of string? People often ask it in response to the question, when are you going to be done? A lot of projects, maybe even all of them, fall into this category. Because there will always be unexpected events, complications, new decisions made, changes of heart, stuff like that. And this is why deadlines are so important. If you don't get the project done by the end of the month, the trade show will happen and your project won't be part of it. End of story. This is why I love deadlines. As I mentioned before, you can improve something infinitely, meaning that you never finish that project. Without the external accountability of time, which marches forward no matter what, you might never produce anything. And that would be sad. Let's take the example of this podcast. I know when I'm finished writing it. I know that I have to fill up 1.5 pages on the screen. I've timed it, and I know that that equals 5 minutes of recording time, more or less. And 5 minutes in length is what I originally planned for this podcast to be, each episode. If I didn't have that guideline, I'd have a lot more resistance to doing this. Now with the podcast, sometimes there's like a natural ending point before the 5-minute mark. I feel I've made my point and there's nothing more to add that wouldn't be fluff or just redundant. So I end it. I give myself permission to do that. Then sometimes I discover that there's more to say than I thought, and then I divide the material into 2 or 3 podcasts. Sometimes I stop and go back and read what I've read so far to see how I'm doing. Am I sticking to the point? Am I adding value? Is it interesting and fun to listen to? If I get stuck, I can usually get back into the flow that way. It is really hard to start working on something that might turn out to be an uphill slog forever, and you never know whether it will be or not. That's like running a race that doesn't have a finish line. Or there might be one, but you don't know where it is. Wouldn't that feel stressful, make you not want to participate? Say you're running a race and you do know where the finish line is. With that information, you can manage your energy. You can slow down when you need to in order to have enough energy to finish. You know how much water to bring, again, so that you have enough to get you through the race without stress. You've got the right gear, you've got the right clothes on. Let's compare this to whatever project you're working on. It's not a totally fair comparison because as far as I know, there aren't any races that don't have set finish lines. meaning that somebody else has decided where the race ends. And once you get there, you're done. You have that satisfying feeling of 100% completion. With your own project, you have to decide when they're done, even if they're assignments from someone else. Even if the project is something like you have to pass an exam where you know exactly what you're going to be graded on, but you still have to decide how much you'll prepare for it. You have to arrive at an acceptable mix of how much time and energy you have, as well as how much motivation you have in order to pin down that ending point. So here's what you can do right now. Pick a project that you're dragging your heels on. See if you understand exactly what the end product will be, and define it if it's not there. This will help crystallize your thinking and aid you in planning your time better. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Claire Tompkins, the Clutter Coach. If you like the show, I'd love it if you leave a rating and review in iTunes. You can subscribe, too, so the podcast will be ready and waiting for you to listen to. You'll find the show notes on my blog at www.cluttercoach.net, and you can check out my store to find books I've written and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you're a fan of the show, you can become a patron on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. You can find my page by going to the Patreon website, that's Patreon, and searching on Clutter Coach. I'll still post the podcast free of charge, but I've got some cool rewards for folks who want to help me make the show even better. Come back next week for a new podcast.